Let's give a warm round of applause to welcome our teacher. All right, please be seated. Today, we have a truly rare and precious opportunity. We are forming a connection with a master who embodies compassion, wisdom, and strength. He will help us explore the source of wisdom and patiently nourish the everlasting flowers of our hearts. Before this wise master gently leads us onto the right path in life, guiding us forward, let us first invite the organizer of today's event to come forward. Chen Jie, Vice President of QINGDAO HENGXING University of Science and Technology and Dean of the School of Aeronautics, will deliver a welcome speech. Please welcome him on stage.
Respected Khenpo Sodargye, dear teachers and fellow students, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are all doing well. First of all, on behalf of all the faculty and students of HENGXING University of Science and Technology, it is my pleasure and honor to be here today. I would like to extend a very warm and heartfelt welcome to Khenpo. Respected Khenpo Sodargye comes from the Larungar 5 Sciences Buddhist Academy. With a compassionate heart and kind intentions, he has tirelessly translated scriptures and taught for the Han Chinese monastic community. He is a prolific author, skillfully expounding the Dharma and guiding countless people. He has donated to support education, offered comfort to disaster-stricken areas, helped those in need, and spread compassion widely. He has traveled to many countries and regions like Europe, America, Southeast Asia, and so on to spread the Dharma and give lectures. He has also gathered with students from top universities such as Peking University, Tsinghua University, Renmin University, Zhejiang University, and Fudan University. He has helped university students explore the source of wisdom and nurture the blossoms of their heart. He has had a tremendous impact both at home and abroad. Today, our HENGXING Institute of Science and Technology welcomes this eminent monk and virtuous teacher. He will be giving a lecture to everyone, which is titled, A Happy Life Begins in the Heart. This is a rare opportunity as HENGXING, which is upgrading its level, also needs a cultural upgrade and the building of spiritual culture. The diligent students of QINGDAO HENGXING Institute of Science and Technology all the more need great wisdom to establish themselves and perfect their character. Now, let us invite Khenpo to give us a talk on A Happy Life Begins in the Heart. Thank you.
Respected principal, esteemed teachers, and fellow students, I am very glad that we have this opportunity here together today. This afternoon, we will use this valuable time to openly communicate and thoughtfully share together. The topic of our lecture today is A Happy Life Begins in the Heart. Perhaps many people here may not necessarily agree with this viewpoint. Some of you may think that a happy life should begin with romance, or that a happy life should start with money. How could it possibly begin with your own heart? If happiness really starts from the heart, then since everyone has a heart, wouldn't that mean everyone is truly happy? To some extent, you can interpret the meaning of this idea this way. But in reality, all of you wonderful students and dedicated teachers here should really take the time to reflect on your own lives. Each of us is truly willing to strive for our own happiness in life, deeply and sincerely, but For a life to be genuinely happy, is it really dependent on external things like material possessions or money? Or perhaps, is a happy life brought about by having a romantic partner by your side? Or does it come from some other kind of circumstance? In fact, this is a question that many people should seriously ponder and reflect on. So, today, by discussing this topic, I hope everyone can take a moment to think about life, even if just for a short while. Most of you here are students, and during your student years, many people would hope to have a truly meaningful and memorable experience in that time. Some people want to have a romantic student life, while others prefer a more ordinary student experience. But in any case, our student years are extremely precious. If during this time we set the wrong direction for our lives, the direction of study is not chosen well, then in the end, we may never truly find real happiness in life. Although I'm a Buddhist, I also really enjoy learning all kinds of knowledge, including just now, about an hour ago, I was given a tour on basically all the main teaching buildings and laboratories of your HENGXING Academy, visiting many of the buildings one by one. During the tour, I was deeply impressed. Personally, I don't know if I will have the opportunity in the future, but if the opportunity arises, I would also very much like to build a technology institute like this. In the past, after I visited some schools, I later aspired to establish a few schools myself. The results have been quite good. Why do I think this way? Because as everyone here knows, many college students nowadays tend to have high expectations but lack practical skills. During their studies, they do not put in real effort to learn well. They spend all their time on eating, drinking, having fun, or dating. Or they might go out to play cards, get involved with drugs, gamble, and even skip their classes altogether. I have visited many schools, and some of them are truly shocking. You could say that it gives rise to a sense of sadness in my heart. Parents work so hard and go through so much to raise their children to adulthood. If it were like in Western countries, after turning 18, parents basically don't have to take care of their children anymore. But in many places here, even after going to college or vocational school, parents still have to keep paying your tuition fees. At this point, if our students, during their 3 or 4 years at school, do not focus their minds on studying, do not devote themselves to acquiring skills and knowledge, then when they finally enter society and look for a job, they end up without any real skills or specialties. This kind of situation is now, in fact, becoming increasingly prevalent in our society, especially in recent years. Actually, in my opinion, I would say many of our college students nowadays are all pursuing bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degrees, constantly seeking higher academic qualifications, which is certainly a good thing. But most importantly, perhaps we should learn something practical, something that can truly be used in our own lives. It is very important to find practical knowledge that is needed for our future jobs. As for vocational colleges, from what I see in China, they are actually not very mature yet at this stage. I have been to many countries and visited many colleges and schools, but based on what I have learned, vocational education abroad is actually quite well developed and fairly advanced in many countries. For example, in Australia and New Zealand, they have a history of over 100 years. In those countries, when people go to college, they place great importance on vocational colleges. For many of them, their first aspiration is to go there because they offer very good job prospects and benefits. Similarly, in Switzerland, actually, 70% of students are willing to attend vocational schools. Approximately 20 to 30% of students, for example, may go further attending more prestigious or higher level schools, such as in the UK and also in Germany. About 50% of students are willing to go to vocational schools. Only a portion of the students go to other types of schools. Looking at this situation, I think that in China now, the overall development, management, and experience of some vocational schools still show a certain gap when compared to some internationally renowned vocational schools. There are indeed differences. However, given the needs of our current lives and the demands of the job market in the future, at some point, vocational schools and vocational education will be indispensable. So just now, I saw that many students in these colleges are studying fields like aviation management, hotel management, and also, for example, early childhood education, as well as automotive studies, and so on. These kinds of practical and highly hands-on skills, I believe, are very important in today's society. Although right now, in our society today, there is a common trend or aspiration among people where many people's first goal is to become a civil servant or to get a white-collar job. But in reality, it's impossible for everyone to become a white-collar worker. Some people will become blue-collar workers and support themselves in this way, doing meaningful work for their society, their nation, and their families. This is something that is extremely important at our present time. Therefore, we feel that indeed some of the students present here today, no matter what your major is in school, regardless of the field you've chosen or the subjects you're studying, I think you should really try to set aside all other things during your time at school and wholeheartedly focus on mastering these technical skills. The more you learn, the better. As people often say, having more skills never weighs a person down. The more knowledge and skills we have, the better. It won't burden us. In other words, these skills are useful for our entire lives. A house full of riches is not as good as having a single skill. In other words, no matter how much money we have, how much land, how many cattle and horses, or how many possessions, these things may not necessarily stay with us. Nowadays, some parents leave their children a lot of gold, various types of apartments, even different kinds of cars, personal savings, and so on. But in reality, if we ourselves lack wisdom and skills, then no matter how much money your parents leave you, in the end, it's very likely you end up destitute and penniless. It's a real possibility. So now, in many universities, in some schools, I'm not sure what the situation is like for students here, but many students choose to become managers, leaders, accountants, or work in finance. They want to be a boss. For many people, their main goal is to avoid doing actual work, to avoid getting their hands on anything. But in fact, our learning, teaching, and doing, these three things need to be combined. There are so many people in this world. Not everyone can be figureheads. It's not possible for everyone to be a manager, with no one left to be managed. That's just unrealistic. Therefore, when it comes to practical skills that you can truly use, skills that you will never abandon throughout your life, we need to actually do things ourselves, both physically and through our actions. This is something that'd be very good. I often see some students, when they sign up voluntarily, most people are unwilling to do the actual work. They only want to do things that seem grand and impressive. And when they graduate, they hope to make a lot of money right from the start. Right now, many companies can't find people, and many students can't find jobs. The employment problem in China is becoming more and more difficult. What's the reason for this? On one hand, I think it's because nowadays there are too many university undergraduates and PhDs. But for some of them, undergraduates and PhDs are just a title. In reality, they really don't have anything that is truly practical and useful in life at all. Whether it's knowledge or character, they lack both. They're not as good as those who have genuinely learned something solid in school. Applying this knowledge in society is very important. In this way, we should realize that right now, on one hand, students' mental preparation is very important. When you enter society, it's actually not as wonderful as it was in school. Although I've heard that many of you here are in targeted training programs, this is also very good, as you can all be assigned jobs upon graduation. But the most crucial thing in this process is the education of our character, education of traditional culture, and education of religion. If a student only knows some computer skills, some technical skills, and various kinds of professional knowledge, but has very poor character and weak resilience, they'd be extremely fragile with a very bad temper, capable of doing all sorts of bad things with their terrible personality. Some people are unwilling to do meaningful things, but are especially eager to do things that are meaningless. Even if such people are trained for specific roles, once they enter society, no matter what kind of department they end up in, they probably won't last very long. Many companies don't want people like this. So in schools, my view is, it's not just about cultivating knowledge, skills, and culture. While these are important, what's even more important is the cultivation of our hearts and minds. People shouldn't be too greedy, nor should they harbor too much anger and resentment. People shouldn't be overly jealous, arrogant, lazy, or fragile. All of these qualities can actually be cultivated in students while they're at school. Their external skills can also be developed. For example, in some sports schools, we've seen students who, when they first entered the sports school, were in very poor physical condition, but after years of continuous training, their physical fitness became excellent in the end. It's the same principle with a school. When a student first enters the school, it's quite possible that they're not doing well at all. They might not pay attention in class, and their mind is always wandering when they study. But with the guidance of certain teachers who rigorously train our minds and temper our spirits. In these cases, gradually, as they leave the school, they become good people. Being a good person is very important. In today's society, those who have a good character, good personality, and good morals are more precious than gold, more valuable than skills, and more important than knowledge. Therefore, we hope that many teachers and students here today can understand that our school is not just a place for technical training. If it's only about technical training, then a person is no different from a robot. People need to have a sense of emotion. They need to have gratitude, a soul, and a heart that knows how to repay kindness. Some students have very poor character. They don't study seriously or diligently at school. For all of these various shortcomings and problems, they often tend to blame their parents for these issues. They ask why their parents were born in the countryside, why their parents are illiterate. Why didn't my parents raise me to be something in particular? But in reality, their parents have worked so hard. When you came into this world, they made sure you didn't rot or get washed away by water, didn't get eaten by wolves, and didn't get harmed by others. They worked so hard to raise you to this day. It really wasn't easy. When we came into this world as newborns, our bodies probably weighed very little, in fact. Among Tibetans, we don't have this custom, but in Han areas, babies are often weighed at birth. In Tibetan regions, we don't weigh babies, but it seems like it's common in Han areas. Chinese often care a lot about how much their newborn babies weigh. You often see this in the newspapers as well. A certain celebrity's child was born, and they report how many kgs the baby weighs. So at that time, many of the students here today, when you were born, if your parents weighed you, you were very, very small. But later, your parents used the essence of their own bodies, their money, and food, working hard to wipe your nose, clean your dirty diapers, and gradually raised you to where you are now. How much effort did it take when you were in elementary school, and how much effort does it take now? But nowadays, in this world, some students who lack a sense of gratitude or appreciation often complain about society. In fact, there's really nothing to complain about. We should approach everything in this world with a grateful heart. Having a classroom like this is actually not something that comes easily. Think about how hard the founders here worked, and all the facilities here, how many workers it took, laying brick by brick to build it up. Every staff member here, think about how much they earn, yet every day, bit by bit, they teach us knowledge. Everything we have now, including the clothes I'm wearing today, in fact, these clothes are not easy to come by. Countless workers contributed to them, along with their tears, their sweat and toil, their hard work and effort. Whether it's what we eat, what we wear, or anything we use, if you are someone with awareness, you can really think about it carefully. In fact, there are so many people we should be grateful to. Logically speaking, we always tend to hold a sense of complaint toward the world, resenting others, feeling anger toward others. But if you go on like this, in the end, you might end up in prison yourself. Yesterday, I went to a prison, and I visited prisons before as well. When I went yesterday, many of the people in the prison looked at me a bit more kindly. At the very least, when I was speaking, everyone was actually quite focused. They were very attentive the whole time, and their attitude was better than before. But from the look in the inmates' eyes, that deep, searching gaze they shared, you could see that they still harbored a kind of resentment towards society. What is the reason for this? On one hand, it's caused by their own faults, habits, and by greed, anger, and ignorance. But on the other hand, maybe society has also brought them some unfairness or injustice, and so on. No matter what, the rest of us really shouldn't be like them in any situation. Because we have freedom and we have so many resources. At this moment, the reason I want to talk to you today about how happiness starts from the heart is actually because happiness can truly begin within our own hearts.
Some people believe that happiness might mean having a lot of money in millions, tens of millions, or even billions. They think that only then can happiness truly begin. But in reality, that's not the case. There are different definitions of happiness. Some people believe that, for example, wearing famous designer clothes and using luxury brand cosmetics, or driving some luxury cars and living in villas or suites means they might be very happy. But that's not, necessarily the case. We often see that some wealthy people actually experience even more pain in their hearts. They're always on the phone, yelling at people and breaking down in tears all the time. Sometimes when I see a luxury car, I often think, oh, the car itself is very nice, but the person inside is probably the one who sheds the most tears. And sometimes when I see an old beat up car, maybe I thought the person inside that car doesn't really cry quite as much as others might. You students probably don't think this way. You think as long as I have money, I'll definitely be happy. But if you don't believe me, just wait. When you become a boss in the future, it'll be painful. Actually, if the education we received treats happiness as something that's a material and sees its source as money, then it would be unreliable. The same principle applies that in this world, when we truly look inward, look into our hearts, we realize that all the happiness, joy, and success that we see in this world, as well as all the things that we hold great admiration for, actually behind them all, there is always an immense amount of pain. But on the other hand, how do we deal with this pain? We should understand many truths about the world from within our hearts. At that time, maybe you don't have much money. Maybe you're fixing tires in some workshop. After you finish fixing tires, you'll earn a stable amount of money, or maybe you've received your wages from this job, and with that simple money, you can support your life, feel relaxed and happy inside. That's why I often think that the boiling point of happiness is different for everyone, just like its temperature. Depending on the area you live in, sometimes water boils at 80 degrees, different in different places. In some other places, the water boils only at 100 degrees. The boiling point of water is different. And in the same way, so is our happiness. Some people are very happy when they earn 10,000 yuan every month, while others are just as happy with a humble salary of 1,000 yuan. So sometimes the way we experience life is different, and the happiness we get is completely different as well. Yesterday, I was telling this to someone that in the place where I live, generally speaking, for a volunteer teacher, we only pay 1,000 yuan. But some teachers are very happy and feel it's quite good. Some of our school staff, including those who sweep the floors, do the laundry, and cook, and so on, these staff at our school, we pay them 1,000 yuan, 900 yuan, or just 700 yuan with different small salaries. And many of them are already very satisfied. But in big cities like QINGDAO or Beijing, I know someone in Beijing, and they say that in Beijing, if you have a monthly salary of 6,000 yuan, it's basically just not enough. 6,000 yuan simply isn't enough. So in our area, 600 yuan might be equivalent to 6,000 yuan in Beijing. But the happiness people get may, in some sense, be quite similar. So when we use money to measure a person's happiness, just think about it. Some people feel that even with 6,000 yuan, it's not enough. They think that, if I have an annual salary of 600,000 yuan, then that's pretty good. Otherwise, I need to buy a house, and I also need to buy a car, and it wouldn't be enough. Just buying a house isn't enough. I need a car too, and having a car also isn't enough. This year, I'm buying a 200,000 car, next year, a 600,000 car, and the year after that, it has to be a really good one, $1 million car. Even several million isn't enough. I want 2 cars. 2 cars aren't enough. I want 3. 3 cars aren't enough. I'll keep one in China, one in the US, and one in Canada. Now I am building a villa in QINGDAO. But that's not enough. I really should have one in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen too. In all these developed areas, I need to have a villa. That would be great. But even having villas in all these places isn't enough. Canada, Japan, United States, Germany, United Kingdom, and Switzerland. Wouldn't it be great to have a villa in several countries? But when you keep chasing after so much wealth, you just become more and more exhausted. In the end, when you leave this world, you might end up with nothing at all. Sometimes we really need to think about what happiness actually is. Nowadays, some people think it's about the quality of life. They want a better quality of life. They feel that wearing well-known designer brands and carrying expensive, high-end bags and so on and so forth is absolutely essential. Although I haven't carried anything like that, I've heard that many young people care about the bags they carry, the shoes they wear, and the cars they drive. Everything they have has to be about quality. But the kind of quality you're talking about is actually quite different from many other kinds of worldly qualities. Just then, I saw a student fell asleep, and everyone's clapping startled him awake. What I was mainly saying just now is if our happiness is built on money, there will definitely be some difficulties. Once, there was someone who was living in a foreign country, far from their homeland, and she happened to win a substantial sum of money, 500,000 pounds, in a lottery. That's equivalent to about, around the 4 million yuan. About 10 years ago, when she first got the money, she was extremely happy. She started to think that I'm truly the happiest person in the world because I have 500,000 pounds. But in the process of managing it, it didn't actually bring her the happiness in life that she expected. In the end, she committed suicide. But before she died, she told the people around her, even if I had 30 million pounds, I still might not be very happy. So sometimes it's about our inner hearts. Nowadays, many young people suffer from depression, and autism is also more and more common. Some people often tend to overlook or neglect the aspect that concerns their inner personal growth in their daily lives. They keep living, even to this day, in what is now commonly referred to, we call it as a so-called vulgar culture. When this kind of low-standard vulgar culture is thriving and fragmented culture flourishing, as well as fast food culture being very popular. So at this time, what do most people turn into? They either turn into nihilists, materialists, hedonists, a lot of people, so many of them are really on their phones all day long. And what's on their phones? All kinds of chaotic information. They quickly skim through some simple knowledge, some very vulgar knowledge, all sorts of eye-catching ads, bad advertisements. These people online are often, in fact, trying to deceive those with very low discernment. All the knowledge flooding the internet now is like this. It's not like people in ancient times when a person used to have a profound level in knowledge and character. That kind of deep attainment is becoming increasingly rare in our modern world. So what do most people focus on nowadays? From morning till night, every day, apart from money and themselves, there is no spirit of selflessness for others. So I hope that when many people are studying science and technology, they will try not to care too much about their own personal reputation, their wealth, and their ego, things about themselves. If you do things for your own reputation, for your own wealth, or for the sake of exaggerating and inflating your ego, then all the various crafts or knowledge that you create or produce may not necessarily be very well done. I once read the book Zhuangzi, and inside the book mentions the story of a carpenter whose carvings were all truly lifelike, whether it was a tiger or a leopard. All the animals he made with his carvings looked exactly like real living creatures. The king of the kingdom Lu heard of his widespread fame, and everyone simply wanted to learn his skills. At that time, the king of Lu was very curious and invited the carpenter to his palace so that he could ask him, "I've heard that all of your wood carvings are exceptionally good these days and seem to be completely different from those of other carvers. So, what kind of method do you use? What do you do to carve these things?" Then the carpenter said, "When I am working on my craft with great care and attention, I get rid of my ego, the attachments I have to myself, and any other unhealthy desires for fame or profit." How do I do this? Every time I observe a period of one-day vows. Perhaps many of you students have never heard of one-day vows. It's basically a kind of ritual in religion. After the carpenter complete this process of one-day vows, for the first 3 days, he says, "I do my best to forget about my own reputation as much as possible. During the following 4 days, I do my best to forget about my desire for wealth and any sense of selfishness. In other words, I let go of thoughts of fame, profit, and ego. With this mindset, any carving I do, in the end, ends up achieving such results." That's what he said to the king. So I think here, as I look around, I see many students. Some of you work with gears and parts. Some are flight attendants. There are all kinds of different professions. When you work in different professions, the first thing is to see whether your mind has calmed down and relaxed. Second, during the process of your work, it's impossible for us to have no sense of self at all, to be entirely selfless like a bodhisattva. You probably can't achieve that. But at the very least, we should be attentive and conscientious and have an attitude of being responsible to our clients and to others. If you do everything solely for yourself, then in the future, many of you here might end up doing a lot of bad things. If there isn't a bottom line of morality, you'd see things like many of the accidents on the highways nowadays. You all know how some people comment on these incidents. We all know what kind of factories produce the toxic milk powder we have now. We all know where all sorts of gutter oil comes from. There are so many different kinds of food that we don't even dare to eat. This afternoon, the person who was driving me gave me a couple of candies. At first, I didn't dare to eat them, but they said, "It's okay. We made these ourselves." Only then was I reassured to eat them. Why? Maybe it's because of all the media exaggeration these days, or maybe it's real, but we must have a sense of caution. Now, I feel a bit worried whenever I eat anything. I always wonder, is there some kind of chemical in it? Some hormones, some toxins. And what's the reason for this? Because you see, whether it's at school or at home, when we're educated, there was probably less emphasis on the education of our characters. In this case, when these students enter society, will they do bad things? Logically, they shouldn't. We hope such things won't happen. But it's hard to say. What kind of social structure does the overall climate of society create? In this situation, many students here also hope to develop a compassionate character, a kind character, and a grateful character while at school. If we truly possess this kind of knowledge in our hearts, then when you graduate, you will also make contributions to society. if you can't contribute to society, you will at least be responsible to your own family, your parents, and your children. Otherwise, young people, if they lack a sense of self-protection and self-discipline, especially here in Guangdong, the number of people trafficking, selling, and using drugs is increasing. If young people don't protect themselves, I think this drug use is very dangerous. Yesterday, when I visited the prison, they reported that about a quarter of the inmates were there because of drug use or drug trafficking. It's really frightening. So among the young people nowadays, some people will be very successful in the future, but some other people will not only be very unsuccessful, but may even go to jail. Is that possible? It's very likely. So before that happens, we need to think. Some young people just think it's fun. No big deal. I'll just give it a shot. See what it feels like to go high on drugs. But once you try it, you end up getting addicted. And from then on, you can't quit. It's very easy to get addicted and almost impossible to quit. It's extremely frightening. For example, where I live is in Tibet. And Tibetans have always practiced Buddhism. Because of their Buddhist faith, they won't engage in things like drug uses. There was one time when we held a seminar on the prevention and treatment of AIDS. I just attended this seminar just a short while ago. At the time, there was a woman, a teacher from another ethnic group. She said, maybe things are a bit better for you, but in the area where we live, there are so many people using drugs. In some ethnic groups, the spread of AIDS is indeed extremely severe. And in some settings, with young people, especially in universities, there are more and more things that are unhealthy for both our body and mind. In the end, it becomes very difficult for us to succeed or find employment. That's why we need to learn technical knowledge. But what we also need is to have a healthy and balanced mindset and a strong foundation of kindness in our personal character. If we don't have a foundation of kindness, our students will be very unfortunate in the future. And it will also bring all kinds of negative impacts to society. Ultimately, it leads to harming both oneself and others. Therefore, as teachers, we should impart some education about kindness during our teaching. In fact, when it comes to teaching kindness, I actually think that it is indeed important to spread the scientific aspects of Buddhist knowledge to others. This is something that really matters a lot for many students and teachers. Some people feel that whenever Buddhism is mentioned, they see it as a superstition, as a religion. There are people who view it this way, but actually, this is a sign of one's own ignorance. I'm not saying that just because some of you don't believe in Buddhism, you are ignorant. But in reality, how many scientists, after investigating and studying Buddhism, have gained benefits and happiness in their practical lives? The happiness that it can bring is really wonderful. It is beyond words. Therefore, if we truly want to attain happiness from the depths of our hearts, it may be necessary to have a genuine understanding of religion. I sincerely want to offer a hope to all the students present here. If you truly want to have a happy life in the future, don't always look outward for everything. At a certain point, try to seek from your inner values, outlook on life, and worldview. When you do so, you will find unexpected happiness. Perhaps in your destiny, you are fated to be very successful. Or perhaps in your life, you are someone who faces extreme difficulties, someone who is very unsuccessful and struggles a lot. But no matter what, some detours and setbacks in our lives are not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, they can sometimes lead to unexpected growth. If life is about being resilient, then taking more detours, experiencing more pain, and facing more difficulties is actually, in fact, the best way to strengthen our own well-being. In fact, many people who commit suicide by jumping off buildings these days have never ever received a truly healthy education. Moreover, they all believe that life should be beautiful. But once they encounter some setbacks, they simply can't accept it and ultimately end their own lives. But if, from a young age, your life has been filled with all kinds of pain and setbacks, and you have grown up facing discrimination and bullying from others, your heart will become more and more resolute, more and more resilient. At that point, no matter what difficulties you encounter in life, you will always have the means and the ability to face them. So in school, I really think that this particular kind of highly technical and scientific knowledge, the sort of information and understanding that we're talking about here is, of course, fundamental knowledge in school and very important. But even more important is when we encounter difficulties, when we face discrimination from others, when we are looked down upon or insulted by others, including times when I myself am ill, or when family members or close friends pass away, I look at how I deal with these situations. You have many models, very good ones, for example, as nurses. When you're working as nurses, how to give injections to simulated patients. This is very good. These are all things that guide us in a positive direction. But if I were to run a technical college in the future, I may have some bad exercises. What would I train for? For example, how to cope when your parents pass away, how to deal with divorce or the loss of a child. No school offers this kind of training. They all think these are inauspicious, impossible things. In fact, we humans also need to train ourselves in this area. Many people think that relationships are wonderful, but nowadays, nearly 50% of marriages end in divorce. When people get divorced, I see that many of them suffer greatly. They are entangled in emotional pain, and their families suffer too. So how should we face these situations? Your family members can't be with you forever. Your parents, your grandparents, and even your job, these could all be lost. So what will you do in these situations? What should you do when impermanence appears? What should you do when you fall ill? Of course, technical training is important, but even more important is this. In life, we are bound to face setbacks, pain, and difficulties. How do we actually deal with these things? At a certain point, perhaps when we, for example, face any difficulty, we can remain truly calm and not be swept along by external circumstances, even when faced with challenges. There's an old story about a king who was especially fond of training fighting roosters that would fight each other in matches. He ordered someone to train a rooster for him that could defeat every other rooster in the land. 10 days later, he asked the person training the fighting rooster, "Is the rooster ready now?" The person who trains the rooster was very skilled in this field. So he replied, "Not yet. When this rooster gets angry, all the colorful feathers on its body stand up in a dramatic display. Its crow is incredibly fierce, and its piercing eyes are exceptionally sharp. It's not quite ready to act just yet, but it's getting closer. It seems like this one is the fiercest and the most heroic." Another 10 days passed, and he asked again, "Have you finished training my rooster now?" He replied, "Not yet. It's a bit better than before. But when it hears other roosters crow, whether from nearby or distant places, it still reacts as it normally would. Its feathers still stand up, and it still harbors anger." After another 10 days, he asked again, "Have you still not finished training it?" He said, "Now, although there are no physical signs on its body, it still seems to show, even if only just a little bit. In its eyes, you can notice that subtle hint of emotion lingering there." After another 10 days, 40 days in total, he said, "Now it's ready." Now, it doesn't show any reaction at all.
its state has reached the highest level, on the surface, there is absolutely, really, basically nothing whatsoever. We have an idiom called dull as a wooden chicken. Actually, dull as a wooden chicken means being a bit foolish. But its origin, its meaning, is that when it reaches the highest state, just a single glance from its eyes is enough to intimidate all the roosters around it. Sometimes a teacher doesn't need to scold or reprimand a student verbally. Just a look is enough, because they possess a very high level of inner cultivation. When we have a high level of self-cultivation, there's no need for outward displays. We Buddhists are the same way. At the very beginning, Buddhists might be quite excited, full of passion. When they are learning some of the theory and practice, there are still some outward signs. But when they reach the highest state, no matter what happens in front of them, anything at all, they always manage to remain extremely calm and composed. In face of anything that they encounter, they're always very collected and unshaken. Sometimes we might see some truly great, accomplished masters. Indeed, there are some eminent monks and highly cultivated practitioners. They don't necessarily need to waste a lot of words or put in a lot of effort. They possess a kind of meditative absorption, a blessing, a power. This simply allows many people to completely and fully enter into their state. It's just like some managers or even certain leaders. They don't need to lose their temper, scold others, or hit anyone. They don't need to spend the whole day shouting or breaking down in tears. There's no need for that. They've got that strong, confident look, and they speak with powerful, inspiring words that really leave an impression. This allows everyone, without exception, to be deeply immersed in the unique and special atmosphere of their love. That is truly a profound kind of power. Perhaps many people, including some of us students, when your knowledge truly reaches a certain level, you should aim for the highest state. Of course, this is very difficult. It is indeed difficult. But we still really need it. As the phrase goes, people should always strive upwards, just as water naturally flows downwards. The more we learn, the worse we seem to get. You've already spent 4 years studying for your undergraduate degree, but when you graduate, you're just average. I used to arrange for some students to go to certain schools, and in the end, from their expressions, you could tell they hadn't really learned much. You could see it in the way they spoke and in how they conducted themselves day to day. They really hadn't gained much knowledge. If that's the case, it's not acceptable. People should always make progress, improving day by day. Month by month, there should be noticeable progress. Year by year, there should be real improvement. So this kind of progress relies in part on teachers and classmates at school. They do play a role, but relying on your own efforts is very important. If you really and truly have some inner strength, then you can learn anything. As I mentioned earlier, we don't all have to become undergraduates or university students in order to succeed. Many people used to have different dreams. When I was young, my dream was to become a teacher. One day, when I was at the beautiful University of Macau, someone said, at one point in my life, I used to want to be the president of the country. Now it seems like that's not possible, so I'm preparing to become the Secretary of State. At first, he thought he should become the president of a country. But now, as he's about to graduate, he feels he might only be able to become a Secretary of State. Later, I said, once you enter society, maybe you'll want to be a department head. Will your ambitions keep getting lower and lower? Sometimes we might. The major you truly enjoy is actually very important. The other day, I saw when Tsui Yongyuan, formerly of CCTV, went to the US to film a documentary. He interviewed a truck driver earlier for his report. Inside his truck, there was a refrigerator, a microwave, and even a study. It was extremely comfortable, just like home. He found it quite remarkable. He asked, "How come your truck is just like a home inside?" The driver replied, "It is my home. This is my mobile home." Then he asked, "So when did you start driving trucks like this? When did you develop an interest in this field?" During the interview, it turned out that this person was already over 40 years old.
He had always wanted to drive trucks since he was 6. He told his parents, "I want to drive big trucks when I grow up." When he wanted to drive big trucks, his parents were supportive. They even bought him a model toy truck, which he was really thrilled about. His relatives and friends also admired him. Where we come from, when a child is young, say 6 years old, if a child wanted to drive trucks, most adults probably wouldn't agree. They'd say, "Why don't you have any ambition? You should aspire to something else." Later on, after finishing middle school, he did, in fact, go on to attend a vocational school. He got his driver's license, and eventually, after some effort, he succeeded in driving his own truck. And every time he came home driving his big truck, his parents felt a great sense of accomplishment. Actually, every child, every person has a job or passion that is destined for them. This passion for your work, this sense of duty in your life journey, you must always do your very best to complete it all the way throughout. In fact, this is extremely important. In such a vast world, some people are destined to be farmers, some are destined to be workers, some are destined to be soldiers, and some are destined to be monks. Many people say, "What if everyone became a monk? What would we do then?" If every single person in society chose to become a monk and devoted their entire lives to monastic practices, then who would be left to work? People always ask me this question, but actually, there's no need to worry about it. Not everyone will become a teacher, and not everyone will become a pilot either. These are unnecessary concerns on our part. In short, everyone has their own different job, but when it comes to work, we need to learn to truly, genuinely give of ourselves. Nowadays, many people really are unwilling to give, unwilling to work, unwilling to do things, yet they demand a very high annual salary, a very high monthly wage. You can't expect to do nothing, just sleep and eat all the time. In this day and age, that's especially ridiculous. So when schools are cultivating talent, they must make sure students do hard work, do manual labor, do real tasks. Whether it's a top university or even a vocational school, no matter what kind of environment it is, people like this are always needed. This includes top universities and technology institutes in the United States, where they not only develop our knowledge, but also cultivate our own, including cooking, repairing houses, sweeping the floor. In fact, there are many areas we need to learn. Our children shouldn't just stay at home, letting their parents do the laundry and the nanny do the cleaning. If everyone thinks they can just have a nanny at home, that's simply impossible. You should think for yourself, in the future, I want to be the best. I can take on the biggest responsibilities. I can certainly be a leader, but I can also do the work of a beggar if needed. In this regard, I should be capable myself. I can take on some management roles, and I can handle big tasks as well. But at the same time, I can also do small things, including carrying water, making a fire, cooking. These are things I can do at any time. So now, every student needs to learn a way of self-growth in their own lives, and personal development to have a mindset of self-improvement, being very diligent and courageous. Actually, the courage in our hearts can be completely developed through our own willpower and determination. Our minds can be trained. I believe that in our world, there are countless different resources. These valuable resources have the power to bring us joy, comfort, and a sense of happiness in our lives, including many things within our own hearts and feelings. In this world, we can have happiness that don't cost us anything. There are free things that make you happy. What would that kind of happiness be? If I truly feel genuine joy in my heart, that feeling is completely free. It doesn't require any sort of payment at all. It simply exists. I can be happy at any moment. No matter what I encounter in life, I always have the choice for myself to be happy. When we wake up in the morning, there's such beautiful, soft, and golden sunlight. We can bask in the gentle golden sunlight from early morning all the way till night, from childhood to adulthood. If we were locked in a dark prison, unable to even see the light, or if we didn't have our eyes, we won't be able to see it. So why shouldn't we be happy? We really should be very happy. We also have free air to breathe that is available to everyone. If we couldn't breathe and have to stay in an intensive care unit, it would be extremely difficult for us, relying on machines and artificial means to breathe. But each of us here are still able to breathe. How is the air in QINGDAO? It's a bit better than in Beijing, right? We're able to enjoy exceptionally fresh, wonderfully clean air. And along with that, we also have the gentle breeze of spring, the fine rain of summer, the moonlight of autumn, and the white snow of winter. All the joys that nature brings us throughout the 4 seasons are things we can really enjoy at any time. Sometimes I think we really have no reason not to be happy now. Although in life we may have different tastes and experiences in various aspects, but if we can truly let go in our hearts, each one of us is able to walk on our own. If we were confined to a wheelchair, it might be very painful, but we are all able to walk by ourselves. We have eyes that allow us to see so many things, and we have caring hands that are able to help and support many people around us. So there is no reason for us in this world to still wear a gloomy face, to be overwhelmed by suffering, or to wail in pain. There's simply no need for that. We should have a kind of joy that comes from the heart. There are 2 kinds of this joy. One kind is based on inner realization, an unchanging enlightenment that comes from recognizing our true nature. That is one kind of happiness. As for the other kind of joy, it comes from everything that nature gives us and everything that the society around us provides. We should greet all of this with a sense of gratitude and joy. At such times, in fact, our existence in this life has so many things that are truly worth being happy about, and that really brings us happiness. Therefore, I especially hope that many of you teachers and students here today, through traditional culture, through the wisdom and truths of Buddhism, through your own diligent efforts, and through everyone's ongoing collective cooperation, collaboration, and learning, can cultivate many seeds of happiness. In fact, the seeds of happiness exist in each of our hearts, always and in all places. It's just that we haven't recognized them, haven't sought them out, and haven't paid attention to them. Therefore, I sincerely hope that in the wonderful days to come, everyone will live happily and enjoy a life of happiness. Thank you.